Hola, muy buenas a todos. Perdonad por el retraso de este encuentro. Yo creo que aquí más o menos venimos todos bastante prevenidos con el tema de Richard Stanley, pero para quien no lo conozca o no lo tenga tan ubicado, es un director ya legendario, nuestro premio Sombra de leyenda de este año. Empezó su carrera con un largometraje llamado Hardware, algunos lo llaman el primer giallo postapocalíptico. Tiene bastantes referencias a Río Argento y un montón de personajes que por aquí pues, nos gustan bastante, lo viene siendo todo el Festival Sombra. Luego continuó su carrera con Dust Devil, una película entre la misma Hardware, a lo mejor el arrebato de Zulueta, o a lo mejor se le puede decir muchos adjetivos, que bueno, si tenéis alguna duda concreta lo podéis concretar ahora. Y luego, evidentemente, hubo un problema bastante grande con un proyecto adelante que iba a llevar, que era la adaptación de la obra del Doctor Mundo, que sí, fue un batacazo importante que no llegase a salir, le llevó a retirar del cine y perder ese tipo de fe durante más de 20 años, hasta que volvió por todo lo alto con Color of Space, una adaptación de Lovecraft, protagonizada por Nicolas Cage. Así que menos que tener este tipo de reconocimiento para una persona que ha logrado ese tipo de cosas. Además, es una película grabada en Portugal y un montón de cosas europeas, pero que lo único que tiene es a los actores estadounidenses y distribución americana. Yo me voy callando ya.
Yeah, I guess Hardware must have gotten started when I was about 13 years old. And it probably came from watching Soylent Green, the Charlton Heston movie. And that caused me to go back and read the book that Soylent Green is based on, which is a book called Make Room by Harry Harrison, which is the very first time as a kid I'd ever come across the concept of the greenhouse effect and global warming, and the notion of that our environment, the atmosphere, basically the entire food chain would probably collapse by the early 21st century. And the concept that I would be living in that world, that I was growing up into it and would be spending my life in that world, was terrifying to me as a young adult. And I guess that, inspired me to read more about what was going to happen potentially to planet Earth over the course of the next 50 years. And I guess, that led to then making Super 8 movies, building models, and becoming more obsessed with this post-apocalyptic environment. Yeah, I mean, really, all of the work that I've done in my life has happened by accident. And Dust Devil was actually the first movie I wanted to make. It was an idea I had when I was 13 or 14 years old. And it felt like it was the easiest thing we could shoot. When I was still living in South Africa, I thought, could we write a story where it's just two characters in a car? And I owned a red Volkswagen, and thought, okay, we've got a girl driving a car, and we've got the devil hitchhiking, and she picks him up, and we can use this African landscape. And it seemed like a simple idea for a film. And of course, we couldn't get it made. And then after Hardware, circumstances conspired to get the movie made. The script for Dust Devil already existed. Nobody wanted to make the movie before Hardware got made. And then a circumstance arose after Hardware was released, where one of the producers of Dust Devil managed to get their hands on the negatives for all the footage that I'd shot in the Afghan war in 1989, and said, basically, if you ever want to see your negatives again, you have to sign this contract and agree to make this movie. And because I wanted to save the negative, I signed it over, and Dust Devil ended up getting made. It wouldn't have been necessarily my choice at that point in time. If I'd had my head, I would probably have made a sequel to Hardware instead. Yeah, the Island of Dr. Moreau experience was, I guess, at that time I thought it was the worst thing that could ever happen to me, or to anyone. It was actually worse than the Dust Devil experience. Coming off that, the fact that I was in many ways still sane was kind of a miracle. And I had no desire to be anywhere near the film industry. So right after Dr. Moreau, I'd been paid quite a large amount of money by New Line Cinema just to go away, and I'd signed a non-disclosure deal, so an NDA, so I couldn't talk about it. So I took a job initially as working in a chimpanzee sanctuary in Uganda. Tried doing voluntary work, basically, as a way of saying sorry and trying to make amends to nature. Then progressed from there, ended up in the French Pyrenees. Over a period of time, ended up becoming the only English-speaking mountain guide in the region I was living in, which is what I did for 10 years. Had no real desire to come down from the mountains. Really, it was the initiative of David Gregory from Severin Films, who sought me out to work on a project called the Theatre Bazaar to shoot one of the segments of this anthology film they were putting together. And in the course of shooting Theatre Bazaar, David interviewed me and asked me what had happened on the island of Dr. Moreau. And it was about 20 years later, so I thought it didn't matter anymore whether I spoke about it, so I told him the story. The story was so insane and unbelievable that David went away and fact-checked it. The more he fact-checked the story, the more he realized it actually was true, and the more bizarre it became. And he ended up putting this documentary, Lost Soul, together. He didn't tell me he was doing it. He basically hunted all those people down and then sent me a cut. I remember I watched the link in my home in Montsegur in the French Pyrenees, and after watching it the first time, the only thing I wrote on the blotter pad next to me were the words "call lawyer." Lost Soul then came out into the world. It was only when I saw Lost Soul with an audience that I realized it was funny, that it was getting good laughs. In fact, it was getting pretty big laughs. It was probably the funniest thing that I'd been involved with. And this then turned into a reasonable small-scale hit, and effectively dragged me down from the mountain and brought me back into the film industry. It was really one of the investors in Theatre Bazaar. Theatre Bazaar was funded by a concrete company based in West Virginia. It was all money. It wasn't film industry money. It was all money from concrete. It was the concrete company impresario who came to Montsegur and visited me and said, you should make Colour Out of Space. Was insistent that I should adapt this Lovecraft story. I was resistant to it because I thought, you can't do that. How can you show a colour that doesn't exist? And it's a really old story, this thing with a meteorite hitting the farm, and the farmer in dungarees comes out and prompts the meteorite. I've seen that movie so many times that I was quite resistant towards the idea of adapting it, but I was fully broke at the time. So eventually I took the concrete company impresario's offer, and the script was finally produced. Well, yeah, Lovecraft's notoriously hard to adapt, and I like to think that Colour Out of Space is maybe one of the most faithful Lovecraft adaptations that anyone's ever attempted. It's still not entirely faithful, but at least it actually uses dialogue, and most of the scenes in the movie are based on scenes in the story. We tried very hard to reproduce the essence of it. And Lovecraft's hard for a bunch of reasons. It's one part of it is because he's describing things which are outside of our human perception, which are beyond the ability of human consciousness to conceive or describe, which is a heck of a challenge. Like a colour which is outside of the visual spectrum. But he also uses a narrative style which is really very far away from your standard Hollywood 3-act save the cat kind of structure. He doesn't really have characters or conventional dialogue to begin with, and he's generally more interested in the trees and in the atmosphere than he is in the human beings. In Colour Out of Space, he can spend maybe 2 pages describing the trees and the landscape, and then he has Nathan kill his entire family, or pretty much in one sentence, and you have to look really carefully to he goes into the attic room, and when he leaves, there's nothing in there left alive. And it's kind of, one sentence that he kills his wife and kid. So, he puts a huge emphasis on the description and trying to actually find the drama in that without portraying the story is tricky. Beyond that, there's also this distancing effect he uses in the writing, where you're never getting the direct incident itself. You're getting, in the story, the events on the Gardner farm are described by the neighbour to the surveyor for the dam. You're usually hearing a story told to one person, retold to someone else, so it's very indirect structurally. I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing how James Wan tackles Call of Cthulhu. Not easy. I'm talking about anthology movies.
Anthology movies.
I mean, I do think Creepshow is probably pound for pound the most enjoyable anthology movie ever, and I do love that. And anthologies are tricky on the whole. It's there's always one story that I like better than the other ones, and it's finding a movie where I like all of the stories or where it's consistent. It's a tricky format. So I would stand by being a fan of Creepshow. And Creepshow also has that Stephen King segment, The Lonesome Death of Geordie Verrill, which is clearly a Colour Out of Space adaptation. That was in the back of my mind when we were shooting. Well, I guess I worked through for about 5 years making music videos in the latter part of the 1980s. And we were just desperate and shooting anything we could. So we were making maybe one music video a month for a few years. And during this time, I got to make a lot of contacts in the record companies and with the different artists who were around at the time. And I guess it was the videos we did particularly for Fields of the Nephilim, we were kind of already creating the hardware universe. The early Nephilim videos look like they're part of the same story or exist in the same world. But then beyond that, there was a kind of weird magic that happened on the shooting of hardware. So it was like some kind of magnetic field. When the thing got going, it just seemed to attract a lot of different people, and beyond a certain point, just any number of crazy and unlikely individuals started turning up. I mean, obviously there's Iggy Pop and Lemmy from Motorhead are in there, but also Carl McCoy from Fields of the Nephilim. There's also videotape work from Genesis P-Orage and Psychic TV in there. There's also a contribution from Mark Pauline and Survival Research Laboratories. There's also work from the Mutoid Waste Company in there. And Luciano Pavarotti said that we could use his voice in the Stabat Mater track, and got involved free of charge, which I don't know what that's about. Sinead O'Connor was meant to turn up, but then changed her mind at the last minute. So it became John Lydon contributed a track. So it became a kind of a black hole or a vortex that just attracted everything that was around at the time. We didn't really have any money, so it wasn't because we were paying them a huge amount. Lemmy did it for a bottle of Jack Daniels. It was just some sort of weird energy that was going on at the time.
As you mentioned a few names.
Yeah.
Do you mind repeating?
Wow, okay.
Do You said, because you said Iggy Pop, Lemmy, obviously.
Yeah, beyond that, yeah, Carl McCoy from Fields of the Nephilim is in there. We got basically free use of tracks from Luciano Pavarotti, who did Stabat Mater. Ministry are in there. We got this very early Ministry track before Ministry were really a thing, and we were super lucky to get them. Yeah, and there was contributions from a lot of video artists at the time.
Contribuciones de muchos artistas de video.
Yeah, Genesis P. Orridge and Psychic TV being one of them. Or a lot of the images on the television screens are from Genesis. But we also used
que las imágenes de la televisión son de estos artistas de video.
We also used work from a guy named Mark Pauline, who was a performance artist who was had an outfit called Survival Research, based in San Francisco, who basically built exploding androids or machines that tore themselves apart. He did a live show called A Strange and Terrible Saga of Future Warfare.
What's his name?
Mark Pauline.
Mark Pauline, que tenía un artista de performance que tenía un grupo.
Yeah, he built exploding androids.
Que hacían androids que explotaban y
yeah, he accidentally blew his own hand off during one of the shows. We're hitting a can of jet fuel with a hammer. And then he rebuilt his own hand out of...
que destrozó su propia mano y la reconstruyó con...
He made mechanical claw hand.
Se hizo una mano mecánica para sí mismo.
So yeah, he was a hero to me at this point.
Por todo eso era una especie de héroe para él.
And yeah, there was also an outfit called the Mutoid Waste Company, who were basically kind of Mad Max-style hippies who were living in the warehouses in London, who built some of the cars and vehicles for us. The Mutoids eventually got closed down by the London authorities and went on to form this chainsaw circus, Chaos, in Europe, but good guys as well. It was a very strange scene of individuals that came together.
Había otro grupo que... Sorry, the name of the group, I didn't catch it.
The Mutoid Waste Company.
The Mutoid Waste Company, que no sé cómo traducirlo, pero eran una especie de hippies a lo Mad Max, que le construían los vehículos y los coches para la película, que eventualmente pasaron a hacer el grupo Arcaos con proyectos en Europa.
So yeah, it was just a kind of a crazy energy that seemed to draw everyone in at that point in time, and a very mad 6 weeks in North London. It really helped that I hadn't made a movie before, so I didn't really know what I was doing.
Sí, ayudó mucho que no había hecho nunca una película y no sabía lo que estaba haciendo.
Well, I was always a bit disappointed with the Marillion videos, mostly because the record company, when we were shooting them, we started out, we were supposed to do 3 videos for them. And then somehow in post-production they decided they wanted to make a whole album out of the material. And I feel that they stretched the material too thin. I would have preferred it to have been just 2 or 3 videos rather than trying to make it into a whole album. I think they got over-ambitious, because it's not really a movie, and they tried to do too much with the material. But it was an insane thing to do at the time. I was really interested in shooting someone throwing themselves off the Severn Bridge.
Lo que realmente le interesaba
That's what really drew me to that one.
Filmar a una persona tirándose del puente, y era por eso que hizo...
It was fully crazy because we built a articulated dummy to fall off the bridge. And in those days we didn't have drones, so it's shot from an actual helicopter. We were circling around the bridge in a helicopter to shoot it. And just before the take, the actor who was dropping the dummy made a mistake, and he managed to break the dummy. He snapped the spine of the thing, so he started trying to fix the dummy with some gaffer tape before we could circle around with the chopper to get it. And the passing cars on the bridge saw the struggle with him trying to fix the dummy, reported a rape in progress on the bridge, which was, so it was, yeah, fully insane. Yeah, I think we're pushing the envelope of what we were allowed to get away with at that point.
Estaba exagerando un poco de lo que realmente le era permitido hacer en esa época.
Yeah, nowadays we're shooting with the drone. Yeah, I think I'm pretty, I've got a pretty broad taste. Lately I've been enjoying some of the things that are happening in the further reaches of black metal. Certainly Lavinia in Color Out of Space is a big black metal fan. But we only get to hear the music very murkily on the headphones. So I'm liking the way that some of the Scandinavian black metal groups are pushing very heavily into shamanic, trance, ritualistic territory, playing material on human bones and doing stuff which is really ritualistic and kind of openly pagan or magical. So I've been enjoying some of that stuff. There's a band called Monknor that I'm enjoying very much at the moment. Yeah, I mean, hardware does have a pro-choice, pro-abortion message pretty deeply within it, which is another sign that it's not a typical American movie. It's kind of pro-population control and pro-choice. So, Jules realized that bringing a child into the world isn't going to necessarily fix their problem or fix their relationship or make things any better, which is, I guess, a reflection of how nihilistic I was feeling at the time. And, she remains a pretty spiky, punky character, and I'm always sorry that I haven't been able to give her a sequel. I'd like to find out what happened to her next.
It also works really great in a movie, ironically, with the state policy. The decision of Jill not to have babies and the decision of...
All the characters are kind of, I guess, a reflection of the vaguely authoritarian society that they're in. The other thing that's a bit unusual about hardware is none of them are attempting to rebel against the society they're in. They all kind of accept the situation. In fact, both Jill and Mo are taking money from the government. They're tacitly part of the problem, which is a little unusual. And of course, they're a childless couple. The movie is set on Christmas Day, so you can also read the Mark 13 cyborg as being their sort of their surrogate kid. It's a little Christmas movie in disguise.
La película de Navidad encubierta.
Apparently, Mark 13 is a kind of toy, you know, when she gives a life and wedging all the parts together and all stuff.
Well, I guess it's twofold. My mother was basically a very strong feminist. She dumped my dad when I was 4 years old, so I was raised by my mum and two older sisters. They weren't any significant male role models in my early life, and I was consistently told by my mother and sisters that all men were assholes, basically, and I think that that's reflected in my early scripts. You can feel that in hardware and the Dust Devil. It's like again my mom's ghost, hanging over me. Beyond that, Dario Argento is really my mentor. Dario was a huge influence on me, and that's because Dario was the first person working in the film industry to actually talk to me. When I was a teenager, I'd met a few filmmakers before. I met Alan Parker, I met John Borman, I met Ken Russell, but they had the habit of shaking my hand when I was a teenager and not looking at me and continuing their conversations. And somewhere in the late 80s. It was at a sneak preview of Phenomena. I ran into Dario Argento outside the cinema, and he was really nervous. And I gave him a joint, which he smoked before it earned. It just calmed him down a lot. Then he asked for my phone number. And thereafterwards, whenever Dario came to London, I would get a phone call, and I would have to run and get dope for Dario. This became so regular that Dario passed me on to Michele Soavi, his first AD, and before you knew it, I was getting dope from Michele, and then Arzia, and I met Claudia, and I met the whole family. If that hadn't happened, I probably wouldn't have been making the same kind of horror movies, but somehow I ended up as a sort of extended member of the Argento family at that point in time. Yeah, it sucked me right in. Certainly. I'm currently fighting very hard to get an adaptation of the Dunwich horror made. And if we succeed in pulling this off, I think it will be probably my masterpiece. It's been extremely hard to get together because it touches on virtually every big issue that's going on at the moment. The last few years, the attempt to try to make Dunwich, I think, will be I'll have to write a book about it one day. It's still not there, but we're very much hoping that we'll be able to start shooting it this fall. There's a great script. We've got a lot of cast attached, and we have the first part of the budget already basically waiting. So Lovecraft has survived a lot of different issues, and there's been a very strong attempt to try and cancel Lovecraft and to basically shut down the current wave of Lovecraft adaptations. And I think that attempt has failed. It was largely spearheaded by this Jeff Vandermeer guy who wrote Annihilation, who was the one who basically started the internet campaign saying that Lovecraft was a racist and effectively started the attempt to try to put the lid on it. But at this point in time, now that the James Wan Call of Cthulhu has been announced and Del Toro is starting to imply that maybe he'll come back to it, the Mountains of Madness, I think it's looking like the attempt to cancel Cthulhu has failed. And I think next year we're going to see the result. I think there's going to be a lot of new Lovecraft movies coming our way, which, some will be good, some will be bad, and I very much hope that my Dunwich horror will finally see the light of day.
Últimamente ha habido un movimiento para cancelar Lovecraft, que el escritor de Annihilation es
Jeff Vandermeer, the writer of Annihilation.
Jeff Vandermeer, el escritor de Aniquilación, que él ha sido uno de los, digamos, los primeros en decir que Lovecraft era racista y tal. Pero se está haciendo, el Cthulhu de James Wan. Del Toro está viendo para trabajar con The Mountain of Madness, Montaña de la Locura. Por lo tanto, el año que viene seguramente se van a ver muchas películas de Lovecraft. Y espera poder empezar ya con su terror de Dunwich.
I feel Lovecraft's time has arrived.
Sí, que ha llegado el momento de Lovecraft.
He's going to have a moment.
Creo que va a tener su momento.
But I think the collapse of the Marvel universe and the comic book movies is leaving the way wide open for the Cthulhu-verse.
La caída del Marvel, del universo Marvel, está dejando vía libre para el Cthulhu-verse.
Yeah, because apart from everything else, Lovecraft created something well ahead of its time, which is this concept of a shared creative universe. This extended universe was including the Necronomicon and Cthulhu. It's something which is way beyond just his stories, that he always encouraged other people to write more stories, to add more tales to it. And I think an out-of-copyright creative universe, like a Marvel-verse that's not controlled by Marvel or by the corporate family, that's actually controlled by the fans, that's controlled by the people who love the material, could be something really revolutionary. Kind of. I need to read more. I've only read The Shadow over Innsmouth so far.
Tiene que leer más.
But I'm a fan of very much of the horror comics of the 1970s. I love creepy comic, eerie, and this time period.
And before that, the easy material, do you like?
Well, that was before I was born. But when I learned to read on Vampirella and Creepy when I was 4 or 5 years old. This was when I literally learned to read, and that level of imagery and some of the artwork from that period still really haunts my imagination.
Vale, pues vamos a ir terminando por aquí y tenemos un vídeo antes de irnos de Richard Stanley, así que sí, por favor, nos lo pueden pasar.